The boy asks the girl, whose name is Nuna, to push him harder. He screams with delight and falls into the pond under the swing. The boy asks Nuna to try swinging herself because it's really cool. The girl is not sure that jumping off a swing that is rushing at full speed toward the hill is a very good idea. Nuna thinks that nothing bad will happen to the boy, but for her, it is a very dangerous game. With persuasion and trickery, the boy gets Nuna onto the swing. The girl is not holding on very tightly. From below, the boy shouts for her to let go and jump into the water. The landing should have been soft. The girl falls into the water and goes too deep. She feels herself starting to drown. All the years of her short life flash before her eyes. She thinks about how she was a graduate student in her past life. Nuna was a very diligent and responsible student. She always agreed to all her teacher's suggestions. And her mistake was agreeing to go to the mountains for team building. At first glance, everything should have gone smoothly. The teacher leading the group was disappointed with the physical fitness of his students. Nuna assured him that he himself was extremely fit, and compared to him, they were all amateurs. In reality, the girl was very angry. First of all, at herself, and then at the professor, who was too hard to keep up with. On top of that, she went to the mountains on her day off. Nuna mentally scolded the teacher for forcing her to go on this trip after she had spent the entire previous evening in the laboratory. In her opinion, he simply had no conscience. He could have been more compassionate. The professor asked him to take a photo. He gazed dreamily at the nature around him. Memories of his student years distracted him from the main purpose of the trip and gave the students a break. Nuna photographed the insistent professor. He assured her that the photos were turning out great, thanks to the beautiful model posing for the photographer. But the background wasn't good enough. The teacher asked Nuna to move further away so that all the grandeur and beauty of nature would fit into the frame. The girl obediently followed the professor's instructions. At the last moment, she felt the ground slipping away from under her feet. Blood spread around her body. Nuna thought that she simply couldn't die now in this hole, especially for such a stupid reason, because of her own carelessness. But a voice told her that this was how she was meant to die. Nuna's younger brother pulled her out of the water. He saved her. The girl thanked him and assured him that she was fine and could have managed on her own. The girl was impressed by the boy's strength. The boy said that she had scared him very much this time. She had pretended to be a coward and a weakling. Nuna asked him to forgive her because she had really gone too far this time. She promised that she would never do it again. Nuna believed that her younger brother hated her, so she chose to play the victim and always did what he wanted. The girl was forced to play his games and act silly whenever he wanted. The girl drew parallels between how she had served and walked on all fours in front of her professor in her past life and how she now had to fulfill the whims of her younger brother, whom she did not like very much. A little girl stood surrounded by women in mourning clothes. The whole group was in a cemetery. The women were wondering what to do with the girl. After all, there were 6 other children without her. Nuna thought about her life, which had changed dramatically after her fall when she was photographing the professor. She opened her eyes when she was standing in the middle of a cemetery surrounded by strangers. A woman with rough, almost masculine features was shouting to someone unknown to the girl that they wanted to push the little girl into their arms. But they knew about the woman's difficult family situation and wanted to take advantage of it. Nuna tried to understand where she was and how she got there. Something incomprehensible was happening around her, and these people were arguing right there in the cemetery. Her hands and feet were very small, and she was short. The girl saw 2 coffins standing in front of her. She realized that she had probably been orphaned. Nuna had become a poor orphan whom no one wanted. Everyone around her wanted to get rid of her and leave as soon as possible. She fell down. Nuna realized that her best fate awaited her in an orphanage. She was tired and fed up with the pushing and shouting. Her relatives shouted that there was a shortage of little girls in orphanages. Her relatives' attention turned to the girl when they found out how much people were paying for girls in orphanages. Nuna realized that human greed knows no bounds. The girl ran away from her relatives. The adults shouted at her and begged her to stop. But the girl had no intention of listening to them. She believed that anyone in her place would have done the same. It was better to be on her own. Nuna came across a young woman on the road. The girl's relatives, who had caught up with her, ordered the stranger to hand over the child. After all, she belonged to them by right. The girl begged them not to give her to these people. The girl told them in tears that they were going to sell her into slavery and get money for her. Her relatives justified themselves and said that the girl was lying, that it was just a little misunderstanding and nothing more. A man who was one of Nuna's relatives said that the girl would simply be sent to an orphanage, and there, a new family would be waiting for her to take her in. On the contrary, everything would be better for the orphan there. The girl sat in the arms of a strange woman. The stranger's husband stood up for Nuna and said that if the girl had to go to the orphanage anyway, he and his wife would adopt her. It would be better than traumatizing the poor girl. Nuna's relative said that it wasn't that simple. He couldn't trust the first people he met. He had to make sure that such a precious child would end up in a decent family and have everything she needed. The man who was going to adopt Nuna threw a bag of money at the orphan's relatives. All questions to him were dropped at that moment. No one cared what would happen to the girl or what her future would be. Late at night, the girl was riding in a carriage with her new family. The woman asked the girl, whom she called Reina, if she was scared. The stranger said that they should have come earlier. Nuna thought that these people knew her. The woman said that she had been the girl's mother's best friend. She told Reina about her mother's origins and the noble family to which she belonged. But in her time, she had run away with her lover, Reina's father. The woman understood that events were unfolding too quickly for the little girl, but soon everything would calm down and fall into place. Her new family would take care of their child and provide her with everything she needed. Nuni found the behavior of her new family strange, but she had no choice. She did not want to be left alone again with relatives who wanted to take advantage of her. But when the girl arrived at her foster parents' house, all her doubts disappeared. She realized that if heaven on earth existed, it must be in this house. Everything inside was so impressive. The father and mother called Kirian. The boy came down the stairs but did not hurry. He looked at the little sister his parents had told him about. Nuna decided that her new brother was quite cute. The parents introduced Nuna to Reina. She would be a new member of their family. The father said that the brother and sister were 2 years apart in age, so they would easily become friends and spend time together. The boy held out his hand to his sister. Nuna wanted to pull her brother's cheeks. She liked him and said she was glad to meet him. Her feelings were sincere. She hoped they would get along easily. The girl took her brother's cheeks in her hands. They were very soft and tender. The boy didn't like it. Nuna had no idea that on that day she had met the strongest man in the kingdom and become his slave. Reina Nuna was embarrassed when she saw Kirian's reaction to her. Her mother hurried to smooth things over. She said that the girl was very happy to meet him and that he seemed very nice and pleasant to her. Kirian asked if he could show his new sister around the house. The girl was delighted with this offer. Her mother was all for it. She was delighted that the children got along so well. Reina Nuna, who was climbing the stairs behind Kirian, wondered how she could keep from hitting the boy's handsome butt. The girl completely forgot who she was and whose body she was in. Suddenly, Nuna fell. She flew head over heels down the stairs. Her brother did not react to this at all. He was not going to run to help the girl. He just said that he had forgotten to warn her about the false step made for thieves. Kirian led her to the room that would now be her chambers. The girl couldn't believe her eyes. The room was larger than her entire apartment in her previous life. But something about the boy's behavior alarmed her. He showed her a century-old canopy, and when the girl leaned over to get a better look, he shook the dust right into her face. The girl realized that Kirian was trying to fool her, but she didn't like breathing in the dust. She thought that such a strange little boy couldn't really mean any harm. He was trying to take care of her, but he wasn't very good at it because he was still very young, and little children don't tease others on purpose. For a long time, she hoped that this was really the case, but then it became clear that he was constantly trying to make fun of her and tease her. Kirian pretended that nothing bad had happened and that it was all just a harmless joke. But what she considered to be childish behavior constantly crossed the line. This behavior was repeated over and over again. Raven and Nuna began to have doubts about the boy's behavior. He wasn't so cute anymore. After another incident, Nuna asked Kirian if he was deliberately setting her up in tricky situations and incidents. She couldn't believe that anyone could bully people like that. The boy ignored her words. He asked ironically what his stepsister could do to him. After all, telling her parents about everything was not an option. Kirian had no doubt who they would believe more. But Nuna was determined and had no intention of putting up with the bullying. The girl realized that telling her parents was not an option. After all, if she didn't make friends with Kirian, she would be the one to be kicked out. The terrible realization of the cruel truth confused and frightened the little girl. Nuna understood that he was a very handsome and sweet child, and she was just a foster sister who could be kicked out at any moment. The Duchess would not defend her because she was just a friend of the girl's mother. The girl openly asked why Kieran didn't like her. He replied that she should figure it out for herself. She thought about the reasons for her older brother's attitude, but it was all in vain. Her head ached from thinking. And then she asked for help from the uncle in the portrait. Nuna couldn't cope on her own with the descendant of a great ancestor depicted in the painting. In the caption to the painting, she read the name Istir. Nuna remembered that this was the name of the main character in a book she had read in her past life. This was the name of the most powerful secular ruler of the duchy and the lands at that time. This man was perfect in every way. His only flaw was his difficult character. Because of this, many people respected him but did not enjoy his company. In addition, he had a younger sister who was a commoner. Although she was not of such a noble family as her famous brother, she had plenty of pride and arrogance. She constantly mocked the main character of the novel that Nuna had read many times. In the end, the evil duchess died at the hands of her brother, who was tired of her empty mockery. The girl wondered why Kieran hated her so much. She hadn't done anything wrong to him. Was it because of their unfortunate first meeting? Kieran must have been angry when she stroked his cheeks. After all, he was very proud and stubborn. He probably didn't like that Nuna touched his face without his permission. In the novel, Kieran had a very bad temper. He repelled any sympathy from readers. The Duke was very vengeful and did not allow anyone to mock him with impunity or even show the slightest sign of disrespect. Nuna began to panic, but she remembered the fate her relatives had in store for her and decided that she would not give up so easily. Although the Duke was stubborn and angry, she had to stay in this family. For 5 days, the girl watched her stepbrother to understand how she could find common ground with him. Unfortunately, her efforts were unsuccessful. The only thing that was clear was that he liked to train alone. Nuna looked at the target where the arrow had hit. The girl realized that she must support her stepbrother and obey him. Kieran noticed her and asked what she was doing there. Kieran said that he had noticed Nuna watching him for a long time. The girl said that she just wanted to be friends with him. The boy replied that he didn't want a girl to be his friend. Nuna was very frightened about her future. She thought she should do something useful with her brother. The girl couldn't train with him, but she could help him carry his arrows so that Kieran wouldn't have to interrupt his training. Nuna brought the boy an arrow. He was unhappy that she was taking so long. The girl praised him for his excellent shooting. She thought Kieran shot like a real knight. The boy became proud. Nuna said she was impressed by his skills. Such a worthy knight in training could use an assistant, and she was ready to be his. The girl called him the best archer. The boy assured her that she was mistaken. The best archer in this case was his father. Nuna corrected herself because she believed that he would become the best in the future when he grew up. The girl was confused. She felt that she was now very much like a typical hypocritical servant of a cruel tyrant. But at the same time, she knew that people who flatter others live longer, so she would use this strategy. After a while, Nuna managed to find Kieran's weakness. The boy loved donuts very much. He could eat a whole box by himself and not share. His sister called him grown-up and smart, very quick-witted. Flattery worked very well on the boy. Sometimes he would even share the treats with his sister. But that was quite rare. They did it together quite often, hiding behind the shelves in the library. The mother asked Raina if she had ever tried donuts. The woman assured her that they were a new treat brought from the capital. The girl could eat as many as she wanted because Kieran didn't like sweets. But now that she had such a wonderful daughter, the woman could treat her to something delicious and share her thoughts on how enjoyable it was. The adoptive mother was very kind to Nuna. She loved the girl. The girl considered herself very lucky. She could eat all the sweets she wanted because the Duchess herself did not eat sweets. Neither did Kieran. Raina was simply delighted with where she had ended up. Sometimes her mother encouraged Kieran to try donuts because Raina enjoyed them so much. The boy agreed. His mother was surprised that her son would try something new because of a girl. But at the last moment, he refused. After all, eating sweets was for little kids. But Raina knew that he really wanted something sweet, and Kieran couldn't just show his weakness. The woman said that in that case, all the sweets would be Raina's. The girl hesitated for a long time, but a little later said that she wouldn't eat everything. The mother offered her to take a box of donuts with her. After she shared the donuts with Kieran, she brought him more several times. Raina and Nuna began to feel that her relationship with her stepbrother was improving. The girl asked Kieran why he was pretending not to eat sweets. He assured her that the donuts weren't sweet at all. Sweets were for children, and he certainly didn't consider himself a child. Nuna replied that she liked sweets. Kieran said that was because she was still little and couldn't be as grown up and responsible as he was. Real adults didn't eat sweets. The Duke's descendant said that he had grown up at the age of 2. He felt he was on a par with his famous parents. The girl asked how he had become an adult 4 years ago. Kieran asked her to keep it a secret. The little boy asked his sister if she liked sweets. He asked her to bring him more sweets because she would definitely be given some since she was still little. Besides, he wanted to keep his sweet tooth a secret from his parents. The girl learned how to manipulate her younger brother, so she said that next time she would ask her parents to buy even more sweets. Kieran said that she was pleasant to deal with. The girl asked him to contact her again. That was all she needed. She hoped that their relationship would remain at least at the level of cooperation. Nuna thought about how difficult it was to fight for her life. She deeply regretted her former life. Someone called out to Nuna. An unfamiliar voice called her a commoner. The girl did not immediately realize that she was being addressed. Runya. Nuna did not know this insolent girl who had so easily insulted her. The girl turned out to be the daughter of the Viscounts of Hanbury. They were close relatives of the Duke's family. Nuna thought about the upbringing of children in this world, who, as soon as their parents leave, start swearing and using foul language. The Viscount's daughter said that if she were in Nuna's place, she wouldn't even dare to raise her head. Nuna herself wondered why the girl couldn't just play quietly. The heiress to the Viscount's family said that it would be difficult for the girl. The Duke's daughter said that she wasn't really trying to get into high society and become one of those boring aristocrats who know nothing but how to faint dramatically. Humphrey laughed confidently. Raina thought that her main goal now was to live peacefully until Kieran came of age and become completely independent of his whims, and to start living a real life, albeit one that was quite foreign to her. The girl thought about the plot of a book. It said that Kieran had a very nasty character, and over time, he would usurp his father's power. This would happen the moment he fell in love. After that, he would banish the Duchess, and he sentenced his stepsister to death. Now their relationship had improved, but human nature was quite fickle, as her professor in college had said. At the moment, she had only one priority, to win Kieran's love and respect. But she must not forget about her future. She must become completely independent from her stepfamily. To do this, she needed to gather the necessary funds and secure the financial side of her future life. She didn't care what others said about her. Raina would simply act in her own interests. Kieran entered the room. His little sister rushed to him. Nuna said that she missed him very much. She asked him where he had been because she had been looking for him for a long time. The boy did not understand his sister's violent reaction, but the Viscount's daughter approached Kieran herself and asked him to play with her. Her name was Olivia, and the boy agreed that his sister was not needed for their game. Raina looked confusedly at her brother and Olivia. Kieran smiled at his sister and asked her to wait a moment. The girl was charmed by his beautiful smile. But when the Duke's son and Olivia left, an inexplicable feeling of anxiety came over Nuna, and she was right to be worried. Her little brother returned alone. Olivia's parents couldn't understand how their daughter had gotten lost, and the boy had returned on his own. The Viscount's wife demanded an explanation from Raina. She pounced on the little girl, arguing that she was the oldest in the group and should have been watching the children. The mother asked the girl to answer because no one needed a scandal. Olivia's mother could not calm down. Unexpectedly, Kieran came to his sister's defense. He said that Olivia herself did not want to play with a commoner, and therefore his sister was not to blame. The Viscount's distraught wife asked what had happened to her daughter. The boy replied that the last thing the girl had said to him was that she wanted to go to the bathroom. After that, he hadn't seen her. The adults decided that it was time to seriously search for the missing girl. The Viscount ordered a search of the entire castle grounds. The people around were very worried about where the little girl had gone. Nuna and Kieran were left alone. The boy was thinking about what to do until dinner, as there was still a lot of time left. His sister asked him if he really didn't know where Olivia had gone. The girl had trusted Kieran at first. This could be explained by the fact that she did not yet see in the boy the tyrant from the novel she loved to read. The boy was a good student and quite obedient. He endured long hours of hard training and would not give up until he achieved his goal. In any situation, he behaved like an adult, treated the servants very well, and did not allow them to be insulted. However, there was a suspicion that it was all for show. If he had the same character as in the novel, then Nuni should think about what he could have done to Olivia. The sister tried to get her brother to talk. The next question stunned the girl. Kieran asked why she was so concerned about Olivia's fate, since she didn't like her at all. His sister assured him that it was just her brother's imagination. The boy asked again if she really wanted to know where Olivia had gone. Reina Nuna did not mind, but she was afraid of becoming an accomplice to murder. The boy told her that Olivia was on the 5th floor. The 5th floor housed the maids' and butlers' dressing rooms. There was also another empty room, but it had been broken into long ago and was no longer functional. Kieran advised her to use the butler's dressing room. He knew very well that Olivia would not go to a dressing room used by servants. Therefore, the boy warned her that it would be better not to go into the bathroom, which had been broken for a long time. Nuna and her brother went to look for the missing girl. Nuna was tired of wandering around such a large house. It was simply gigantic, and finding the Viscount's missing daughter was not as easy as it seemed at first glance. Kieran quickly grew tired of searching. He asked if they could finally stop looking and go eat some candy. He promised to give her some very tasty sweets. The girl was frightened by the words used by child abductors. Nuna replied that she really wanted to find Olivia. Her brother asked her why she wanted it so much. The girl replied that she was just worried about how the girl was feeling. Kieran asked her if she liked Olivia. Finally, their search was successful. Nuna Reina saw Olivia leaning over the sink. Her hair seemed to be stuck in the drain. She was surrounded by a pulsating energy that glowed purple. The girl asked for help. Reina asked her not to move and said they had to think of something. The problem was a broken spell, and most likely, Olivia's hair would have to be cut. While Nuna Reina looked for something to cut Olivia's hair with, Kieran simply tore off a strand of the Viscount's daughter's golden hair. The girl stood on the floor in front of the young descendant of the Duke. The boy held the strand of hair in his hands and bragged to his stepsister that he had saved Olivia from the spell. Although he had done wrong in Nunua's opinion, it was not worth telling him that and turning him against her. When the Duke's family and the Viscount's family were sitting at the table, Olivia's father thanked Kieran for saving his daughter. The boy said that it wasn't him, but his sister who had found Olivia. He had just freed her from the evil spell. Olivia thought that Kieran was truly evil for cutting her hair almost to the roots. Nuna Reina also thought that her brother had cut it too short, but she thought to herself that it could have been even shorter. The Viscount jumped up and asked his daughter not to say such things. After all, she was his best and most beautiful daughter. Kiroyan had simply changed her image and hairstyle very successfully, so there was no need to complain about her savior. Nuna savored the sweets and wondered how even adults could praise Kieran in such a situation. Could it have been planned by the boy himself? She watched closely as the little boy wielded a knife and fork with his chubby hands. Even at such a young age, he showed real skill with cold weapons. There was not even a shadow of remorse on his face for his rather cruel actions. Suddenly, the Duchess began to praise Reina. She said that if it weren't for Reina, they would still be searching for Olivia. The Duke agreed with his wife and said that they should thank his adopted daughter. The Viscounts were not impressed. The girl modestly asked them not to thank her. She had simply done what she had to do. She was interrupted by the Viscount's wife. She loudly declared that in all the commotion, the adults had forgotten about gifts for the children. Kieran found himself the center of attention. He was given toy monsters. The toys were made by the best toy makers and delivered here by air. The monsters were truly masterfully crafted. The boy thanked them. But in addition to this, he was rewarded with gold coins for saving Olivia and for the new magical hairstyle he had chosen for her. Nuna Reina was very surprised. She felt a surge of envy that the boy had been so generously rewarded. The Duke's wife also prepared a gift for Olivia. She also received money for pocket expenses. Nuna waited for her turn to come. After all, her little brother and Olivia were showered with gifts. The girl did not need gifts and toys for children. She was only waiting for money, or rather, gold coins. Her adoptive mother said that it was finally her turn to receive gifts. The Viscount was taken aback, as he did not know that another gift was needed. Nuna Reina thought that since she was a commoner, it was not appropriate for her to receive gifts. Her dream was to become rich and live a carefree life. All she needed to be happy was money. Nothing else. She openly said that she would not be offended if she did not receive a gift, but she would not mind receiving some pocket money. The Viscount was struck by the girl's greed for money. Reina's parents asked why the Viscount would not give their daughter any money. The Duke and his wife said that they had not expected the Viscount to be in such a difficult financial situation. If they had known earlier, they would not have asked for gifts for their son and would have given him the money they had given him. The Duke said that he had heard rumors about the Viscount's difficult financial situation, but he did not expect it to be so dire. Therefore, the Duke said that he would give her pocket money on behalf of the Viscount. Her parents gave her a beautiful doll made especially for her. They hoped she would like it very much. The doll's clothes were embroidered with precious stones. It was made by a master craftsman who was hard to beat. Nuna noticed that Kirian was looking angrily at the Viscount and his wife. Everyone noticed that the boy was very angry, and the noble family was now in a very difficult situation. It was time to finish dinner. At night, Nuna came to Kieran's bedroom door. She called him and asked if she could sleep with him. She was worried that something might happen to her during the night, but in reality, she had a completely different intention. Nuna wanted to watch the boy all night to make sure he didn't commit any crimes against the guests who were staying with them for the night. The girl tried to keep a reasonable distance, but all her efforts were in vain. She didn't want to lose the boy's trust and affection. Raina said that she was actually afraid to sleep alone. Kieran said that his sister was a coward. They went to bed and wished each other good night. Nuna wrapped her arms around her brother's shoulder, hoping he wouldn't slip away. The girl fell asleep quickly, as she was very tired after a long day. She was just about to drift off when Kieran asked why his sister liked Olivia so much. The girl replied that Olivia was just very nice. Raina realized that her brother was starting to manipulate her again, but he had to be very careful because the little Duke was dealing with a former graduate student whose nerves were like steel cables. And that should not be underestimated. She had a strong immunity to such things. Kieran asked what his sister found so nice about Olivia, since she had been very rude to her from the very beginning and treated the commoner badly. Raina replied that beautiful people are forgiven everything. The boy asked how she felt about him. His sister replied that he was the best of all. But she stopped herself in time because she knew how Kieran reacted to talk about his cute cheeks and chubby appearance. He looked closely at his sister and asked if she thought he was very cute. Nuna replied that she didn't think so at all. The boy lay down quietly and fell asleep quickly. The girl was pleased with herself. She wondered if cat owners felt the same way when their cats came to them for affection. Although she was aware of what kind of person her brother would grow up to be, she was sometimes so absorbed by his beauty that she was blind to everything else. Nuna thought for a long time about how good things would be after the Viscount's family left. Everything would return to normal and be good again, just like before. No one would stand in her way. Suddenly, Kieran said that he just wanted to punish Olivia for teasing his little sister. But instead, he received only condemnation and thoughts about the wrongness of his actions from her. It was very unpleasant for him. Besides, when they first met, she had called him very cute and grabbed his shoulders. And now she was saying the exact opposite. He didn't like being called cute and handsome, but now he was annoyed by what his sister had said. But that didn't change the fact that his little sister was the only one he could completely control and boss around. And for him, that was much more important than anything else going on around him. Finally, he fell asleep. The next morning, Olivia approached them. She asked Raina, if she wanted to go to the bathroom. The girl replied that she didn't want to. The guest insisted that she take her because she really needed to use the toilet. Olivia and Nuna played Princess and Prince, who had to save his beloved from a monster. The monster, as was clear, was Kieran, who stood between the two girls. He was not thrilled with the role he had been given. Olivia asked Raina if she was ready to save her, because then she would be able to marry the handsome prince. Kieran didn't understand what Olivia was doing to him and why he had to play such a silly game. The girl replied that she would always be with Olivia now. The Viscount's daughter herself had asked her to do so. After yesterday's incident, she was terrified of the wash basin and would only go to the bathroom with Nuna. Raina realized that the boy was very upset that he had been included in this game of monsters, and the girls began to play the leading roles. Kieran emphasized that his sister herself had said that he was better than Olivia. Therefore, he proposed that she marry him instead of Olivia. Olivia was not thrilled with the young Duke's proposal, but Kieran asked her if she could buy more gifts for Nuna and Raina than he could. Raina thought that a wedding was very cool. After all, it meant living together and giving and receiving lots of gifts. The Duke and his wife, for example, often exchanged expensive gifts. That's when the girl realized that real marriage was just about giving each other lots of gifts. And so she happily accepted the boy's proposal, but their plans were interrupted. The Duchess asked what they were doing. The woman said that relatives could not marry each other, even if they liked each other very much. No matter how much he liked Raina, they could not get married. Raina also understood that for aristocrats, marriage was not just a word. It was a very serious and delicate matter. Such an important step could not be taken lightly. Therefore, it was necessary to explain everything in detail to Kieran. The Duchess took Kieran with her. She said she needed to have a serious talk with him. The girls could play in the room until their playmate returned. After that, Kieran was gone for a long time. After Olivia returned home, Kieran finally came to his family. He did not explain anything about what had happened to him all these days. But the boy said he would come to her at night, so she should not be afraid of his visit. At night, the boy did indeed sneak into his sister's room. Nuna asked him where he had been all this time. The boy said that he had spent all his days with his mother. He felt awkward talking about what had happened to him. Kieran gave his sister a jar of sweets. The girl couldn't believe why her brother was giving her such delicious treats. He said he was giving her something that was very important to him right now. And then he asked her to marry him. The girl couldn't believe that the romantic hero had proposed to her. From the very beginning, things hadn't gone very well between them. She had missed the moment when they had become so close. But she was happy about the gift and the proposal. But Nuna remembered her mother's words that relatives, namely brother and sister, could not marry. The boy said that it didn't matter. He was still determined that he and Nuna would get married. The girl thought he was joking. She jokingly agreed to his proposal. He hugged her. The girl was very happy that she had become so close to her brother, who had hated her so much before and was ready to mock her. Raina remembered the plot of the book and thought that soon this boy would meet the love of his life and do terrible things to his parents, who would be against his choice. But nothing could stop Kieran's love. The boy said that they had to run away from home. The girl couldn't believe what her brother had said. She immediately sensed something wrong in his words, but she didn't give them the importance they deserved. Meanwhile, the Duke and his wife were talking about their son. The man asked if a week under lock and key wasn't too harsh a punishment. The woman assured him that even if the boy had cursed the Count's family, it wasn't a big deal. And although the Viscounts had enough money to buy wigs, Kieran had to be punished for what he had done. He had to understand that he had to grow up and not hurt or harm anyone. A servant interrupted their conversation. He informed his masters that their son had beaten the guards and fled the palace. His father was furious. He ordered that the scoundrel be found and punished for his foolish act. Although Nuna tried to convince her brother that they should not run away, he insisted on his plan. The meaning of his plan became clear a week after their escape. Raina was riding in a carriage with Kieran and two relatives. Everyone praised Raina's beautiful dress. She said she should thank the Duke and his wife for it. The woman joked that at today's celebration, all the men would line up to ask Nuna to marry them. Kieran leaned toward the girl and said that it was very dangerous to go to the celebration. After all, she could be taken away from him there. He insisted that they escape as soon as possible. But Nuna was not going to ruin the plan for the sake of foolishness. She asked him if, as a descendant of a family of dukes, the celebration would definitely not take place without him, and how his father and mother would react to that. He should be more prudent and not do anything foolish now. She had read the novel, but had missed the part where the founder of the empire was the first Duke of Ister. However, after founding the country, he grew weary of state affairs and handed over the reins to a chancellor who was to obey him. His father asked the boy to calm down, because this event was to be the first important event for their family. And Raina Istar was to become a full member of the family after this solemn ceremony, where everyone was to see it. The Duke and his family were greeted by everyone in the hall. The aristocrats looked closely at the Istir family, and they especially noticed the young lady who stood with dignity, but simply next to little Kieran. Everyone was looking at the commoner. The glances at the commoner were more candid than anyone expected. The Duchess saved the girl from this situation. She took the girl by the hand, greeting everyone, and introduced her daughter. The girl was so preoccupied that she even stopped noticing the glances of the aristocrats and nobility, who were no longer looking at her so ironically. Everyone around was asking where Kieran was. Could it be that the young Duke had not come to the reception? The Marquise de Magen approached Nuna and the Duchess. She noted the colorfulness and interesting position of Nuna in the Istrov family. She also asked how the young descendant of the ducal family was feeling. Kieran asked if the Marquise de Magen really had a daughter. The woman was surprised by the boy's question. She introduced her daughter Esmeralda, who was indeed very beautiful and had truly aristocratic features. The boy said that he was pleased to meet the Marquise. The nun, in turn, noticed that this was the beloved girl from the original novel she had read. Could those present know how this acquaintance would end? Reina realized that she couldn't miss such an opportunity and that she should immediately befriend the girl. But the strange thing was that in the original story, she, Reina, was supposed to mock the main character, for which Kirin would then have to shame her. But the Marquise herself insisted that her daughter and Reina, who were the same age, should become friends. The Duchess had no objection and left her daughter alone with Esmeralda. The woman was glad that Reina had been accepted. Nuna asked her brother if he wanted to go with them. The boy replied that he had to stay with his mother because she needed supervision. Nuna thought that the story described in the novel might not have started yet. In Reina's opinion, Esmeralda was the spitting image of the heroine of the novel. The girl asked the Duchess's daughter to call her simply Emerald. She tried to avoid using formal language in conversation and to be more casual. In the original novel, Esmeralda was the daughter of a modest baron, but readers liked her for her dashing and strong-willed character. Here, she was a quiet girl from a wealthy aristocratic family. The story could have turned out differently than in the novel. The girl told Nuna that even though they had only just met, she wanted to be friends with her. In any case, it was worth getting closer to the Marquise's daughter. Besides, Nuna Reina remembered all the heroine's hobbies and interests. The girl asked Esmeralda if she liked horse riding, archery, and fencing. The Marquise's daughter agreed. She couldn't understand how the girl knew about her secret activities and was impressed by her knowledge. She said that she tried very hard to practice, but she wasn't very good at it. Nuna didn't understand, and her reaction surprised the girl. She believed that the main thing was to love what you do, even if you don't succeed at first. The characters in the novel not only shared common interests, but were also equally skilled at what they did. It seemed as if they were made for each other. Perhaps Esmeralda's skills just needed more time to develop. Nuna realized that the best way to win a child's approval was to offer them sweets. Esmeralda agreed to have a treat, but the girl refused because she was afraid of getting fat. Esmeralda said that she could get fat, and that's why she shouldn't eat sweets. For a moment, it seemed that the girl had simply gone mad. She kept repeating this phrase, but she quickly returned to normal. After asking for forgiveness, explaining that she sometimes had severe headaches, the girl continued the conversation as if nothing unusual had happened. She told about a very good pastry shop where she would bring a gift next time. Nuna Reina asked her to wait for her. She would bring some hot soup and something else for Esmeralda to eat and cheer her up. She mentally analyzed what she had seen and came to the conclusion that something was not right here. Not like in the book. She was sure that the Marquise de Magen's daughter was the one who was supposed to win the heart of young Kirin. However, the story had not yet begun. Perhaps it needed time to get started. But it was best not to rush things. On her way from the kitchen, Nuna Reina was attacked by a group of young aristocratic women. The girl realized that this was another cliché from cheap romance novels. A group of girls of noble birth mocking people from the lower classes. The group of aristocratic girls demanded an apology from Nuna for so recklessly offending their friend. As a result, a very expensive dress was ruined. They wanted to know how the commoner was going to compensate them for the damage. One of the attackers suggested teaching the little girl a lesson. Reina said that if they were so protective of their aristocratic friend, then they must have some sense of honor. The girl added that the shoes she was wearing today cost more than the dress of the girl she had accidentally bumped into. Reina said that the cost of these shoes was much higher than the dress of the girl she accidentally pushed. She was not going to tolerate being bullied. She decided to go on the offensive so as not to become a victim. The girl with whom Reina had a conflict could not believe that a commoner could behave like that. But Nuna thought that the conflict was over and there was nothing more to talk about. But the girl did not want to calm down. Everyone around was looking at Countess Lemire. Her behavior confused everyone. The young lady was behaving in a way that was not befitting of a noble lady. Many considered such behavior unworthy and openly condemned Lemire. Nuna decided to end the conflict. She took the position of an adult and reminded them to let her know when the compensation was ready. Lemire asked where the girl was going, but she slipped on the spilled soup and fell. But Reina herself also nearly fell next to her opponent. An unknown boy came to her aid, managing to grab the young duchess and hold her up. The girl asked aloud who this prince on a white horse was. The girl laughed because she said it out loud. The boy paid no attention to this incident. Nuna did not understand what was going on. She simply could not remember such an episode in any of the chapters of the novel. In the middle of the hall stood a girl with whom Nuna had recently had a conflict. The girl's mother came to her aid. She asked loudly who dared to do this to her child. Her daughter pointed at Nuna and accused her. The mother of the offended girl asked what prompted Nuna's insolent behavior. The woman emphasized that she would not tolerate such treatment of her daughter. She asked if the girl had been taught good manners. Nuna thought that since adults had gotten involved, the matter had taken a serious turn. But suddenly, a boy stood up for Nuna. He asked Countess Lemire to let him explain everything. The woman looked at the girl, who had just said that her patience had run out. Even the patience of a graduate student was not enough to hold back. But the boy insisted that the facts should be clarified in order to get to the truth. Nuna explained that Countess Lemire's daughter had pushed her. As a result, soup from the bowl spilled onto the girl's dress. But what was important was that the dragon skin shoes, which had been specially ordered by the Duchess, were stained. Countess Lemure did not believe what she heard. The girl continued to talk about dragon skin, which had to be kept for 100 years every day to become usable. It was not surprising that the Countess had never heard of such a thing. Common people rarely get to see something like this in their entire lives, so the girl understood the woman's surprise and her lack of understanding of how serious the situation was. And accordingly, the amount of compensation would be enormous. Although the girl understood perfectly well that dragon skin could not even be pierced with a knife. Even the teeth and claws of a dragon could not damage such shoes. But she continued to talk about the letter that would soon arrive from the Duke's house. The woman could not bear it and asked where the evidence was that her daughter had committed such a serious offense. The girl asked if the Countess would now deny everything, but the boy said that he was the witness. The boy turned out to be the prince of the kingdom of Xia. Therefore, his word was the word of honor of a noble monarch of one of the most powerful and richest kingdoms on the continent. He said that the Countess Lemure's daughter was guilty. Nuna was still thinking about the prince in the kingdom of Xia. Even in the novel, he was a very powerful and wealthy ally. Just imagine what kind of state this kingdom really was when even a descendant of the royal family behaved so easily. The woman looked at the prince in confusion, who asked if she dared not believe his words. The mother pounced on her daughter with reproaches about her behavior. The countess forced her to apologize to Nuna. The woman assured her that her daughter had made a mistake and that compensation would be paid soon. The nun was glad that everything had been settled with a few words from the prince. This once again demonstrated the importance of his person as a representative of the kingdom. Esmeralda ran up to the nun. She asked if anything serious had happened to her new friend. The girl replied that everything was fine and that the conflict had resolved itself. Nuna asked how Esmeralda was feeling, and when everything was settled, the prince asked Nuna to dance. He asked her to be his bride, but the girl did not know how to answer such a question. She had no idea how this could end. Kieran looked at his mother angrily. He was angry with her. The Duchess said that they had to introduce him to his sister today so that she could dance and talk to other people, meet people her own age. And although the boy protested, the woman understood that she couldn't ruin Reina's plans for love. The girl had to make a name for herself and learn how to behave appropriately and make important decisions that would affect her future. Esmeralda wanted to ask Nuni to dance, but at that moment, a crowd of boys rushed over to her and pulled her away. The girl was sad that no one paid any attention to her, unlike Esmeralda. The prince approached Nuna. He asked her to dance with him. The girl remembered that he was also mentioned in the original story. The boy knew everything about her. He had managed to ask everyone present who she was. Nuna was pleasantly surprised by the rules of etiquette that prevailed in this world. She was pleased that Esmeralda's former fan had become her obedient servant. The boy was a little worried that he was a poor dancer. The girl replied that she didn't think it was a big deal. Both thought that it would be awkward in front of their partner and were quite stiff. The prince said that he would lead the dance and the girl should follow his movements. Nuni felt uncomfortable because she was a poor dancer. The girl suggested that Prince Xia find a new partner. However, he replied that he would not do so, as he had wanted to dance with her from the very beginning. He said without ceremony that he liked her. The girl said that with such manners and gallant behavior, the prince would break many a woman's heart in the future. The prince mysteriously said that he knew her secret. The boy said that commoners rarely get a chance to see such a wonder. They say that the dragon skin vest is a family heirloom of the royal family of Xia. It is also called the perfect shield, which is difficult to pierce. Neither a hail of arrows on the battlefield, nor the cries of predators, nor even overly sticky soup could damage such armor. He asked if Nuna's shoes were also made of dragon skin. He then assured her that they had a lot in common. The prince added that he was pleasantly surprised by how the girl behaved when Lemure's daughter and her friends attacked her. The girl said that it was a little strange when a person liked someone else's lies. He replied that it was the first time he had seen a lady of her age who lied with such an honest expression on her face. And then he asked her again if she was ready to become his bride. The girl was confused. She certainly did not expect such a turn of events. She thought that in the last 2 days of her life, she had been asked to marry twice. This had never happened in her past life. It was so unexpected that it left her speechless. The prince said that he wasn't actually talking about marriage. He was talking about a marriage of convenience. The girl thought that the world of novels was really very strange. The boy explained the essence of his proposal, and Nuna realized that she had made the right choice. Since the prince's mother had been overthrown, power was now divided between him and his half-brother, the second prince. And Xia wanted to strengthen his position by becoming related to the ducal family. In return, he promised her full support in all her endeavors. Dom Istir rarely participated in social life. For their status, their position in society was quite precarious. Therefore, it was worth improving it through marriage. And if Nuna had any wishes, he was ready to fulfill them. The girl said that her only condition was that money be transferred to her account every month. In the future, this would help her move out of the Duke's palace and live independently. After all, the rules that prevailed in the Duke's house greatly disturbed Nuna. It is very difficult for a commoner to live with the gold coins and things given by the Duke. The prince coughed. The girl thought the conditions were too much. The prince said that this was the least he could do for her. He agreed to all the conditions. Nuna thought that this was the first time in her life she had ever felt this way. She thought she would not be able to play such an important role in the prince's life. But the boy assured her that together they would make the perfect couple. And finally, the moment came to find out whether Lady Nuna Reina would agree to become his wife and grant him such an honor. Kirin stood before his partners. Nuna did not expect to see him right there. She sensed trouble approaching. After all, when the prince, brought up marriage, she immediately thought of her younger brother. She had jokingly agreed to marry Kirin. After what he had seen, he might hate her again, and then she would be his slave once more. But Kirin asked if his sister had really agreed. He walked away. Nuna did not expect such a reaction from her younger brother, and now she wondered what would happen to her after they returned home. The prince called her, but the girl said she would return to him later. Nuna found her brother on the roof. He asked her indignantly why she had done such a thing. The girl looked at her brother in confusion. She had only promised to marry the prince. Besides, she had not promised anything to Kirin. She apologized for her behavior, but it was the last thing that could save her from a life of captivity in the Duke's house. This was the only way she could gain independence and start living a full life. The boy asked if a wedding and marriage were not the same thing. His sister explained that a wedding was just a promise to marry. It was easy to break off. It was difficult for her to give up, but this wedding was necessary for her. The boy asked his sister hopefully if she was telling the truth this time. Nuna did not understand what her brother wanted to hear from her. She asked him to just take her word for it. Kirin hugged his sister tightly. He wanted to believe her confession. But deep down, the boy had lost hope and faith in Nuna. After all, just 2 days earlier, she had promised to marry him. Therefore, Kirin decided that he could not completely trust his sister. He realized that her promises were empty. At the same time, he thought about how to keep the girl with him as long as possible and buy time for his plans. And that would be much better than her empty promises. Thus, Kirin began to implement his cunning plan. Her mother noticed that Nuna Reina was behaving strangely. The girl replied that nothing had happened. She was just lost in thought. Nuna thought that it had been 9 years since she became Reina, and now she was 16. During all this time, she had been unable to solve one mystery that had been tormenting her. And finally, the time had come to find the answer to her questions. At the reception, the Duke forbade any marriage for Reina, believing that she was still too young for it. He added that at her age, she should still be enjoying her carefree life, not thinking about marriage and all the troubles that would follow. Raising this issue at this time was completely inappropriate. And so, 9 years later, it became very difficult to find a girl of Reina's age who did not have a fiancé. She thought that Prince His would get tired of waiting and find someone else. Her mother asked her if it was because of Lady Lemire. The girl replied that she had stopped teasing her at all the parties. The Duchess said that if she went after her daughter again, she would definitely get a piece of her mind. Reina asked her not to get so worked up and to calm down. Reina said she had to leave. The Duke and his wife agreed, but Kirian's reaction was difficult to understand. Until then, he had followed the girl closely wherever she went. Suddenly, he seemed to have grown up. She saw in him the real hero of a romantic novel she had read in a past life. The boy had become so gallant, polite, and attentive to women's whims, although she sometimes missed the boy he used to be. A group of women surrounded Lady Lemire. Everyone congratulated her on her wedding and wished her all the best, although their voices sounded too artificial. But she agreed with everyone who spoke of her beauty. Even Lady Esmeralda joined in the congratulations. Lady Lemire thanked them for their warm congratulations. The current queen of the ball was in a hurry to arrange a wedding with a rich baron from a poor family. Lemire asked Reina why she had not yet heard any good news about the wedding. Nuna thought about how this insidious Lady Lemire had gotten to her, never missing an opportunity at every reception to somehow annoy her longtime opponent for the scandal that had occurred 9 years ago at a similar reception. Lemire said that she was beginning to worry about Nuna's delay in making a decision. The girl assured her that she could rest assured. Thoughts swirled in her head about how to teach her a lesson, as the Duchess had said. She also mentioned that Duke Istir had very warm feelings for her. Reina was delighted with the effect she saw on Lamia's face. The girl had learned a lot since becoming the Duke's daughter, rather than a commoner. Lemire pointed to the bracelet on Reina's wrist. She sarcastically asked the Duke's daughter if the jewelry on a commoner's wrist was not too rich, and if this gift was not too much for a simple wedding. Nuna pretended that such a thought had never crossed her mind. Perhaps there was a place where she could leave it for a while, so as not to cause envy and spoil the evening for one of the aristocrats. Lemire agreed that this was a very good idea. She said she was ready to take care of the bracelet herself, as her wedding was coming soon. The girl promised to take the jewelry to her room. There it would be safe and unharmed. The self-confident Lamia thought that such beautiful jewelry would suit only her, and that a commoner had no right to wear such expensive jewelry. Reina completely forgot about her humble position. The girl, who was a commoner, thought a lot about herself. She had once dreamed of becoming a worthy bride for a prince or the wife of the Duke himself. But because of her bad character, she was defeated. Her lack of social skills among the aristocracy and her overly ambitious nature played a significant role in this. She decided to blame others for her failures. And just then, at a moment when Reina needed it most, the prince of a neighboring state came to her rescue. Lamia was consumed with thoughts of how she would take revenge on her rival, who had humiliated her so long ago. Kiriang, who had just entered the room, distracted her from looking at the bracelet. The girl did not expect to see him there. He even frightened her a little. The boy asked why Lamia was hiding from him in the shadows. He said she shouldn't hide because the jewelry looked very good on her. The boy's behavior surprised and confused her. The girl was most concerned that the Duke's descendant might notice the nun's jewelry on her. Kieran said that he felt very bad and sorry for himself when he learned of Lady Lemire's intention to marry someone else. His heart bled for a long time. He had dreamed of Lady Lemire for many years, and it was difficult to get over it. The girl asked why he had told her about it now. If he had done so earlier, they could have gotten married. Lemire said that she still loved him very much and admired him as a person and a man. The girl said that although she had agreed to marry him, if he would give her some time and be willing to wait, she would become his wife, something she could only dream of in the past. The boy assured her that everything would work out. Now they just had to show the whole world and everyone present a sign of their eternal love. The girl couldn't understand what Kieran was talking about. The boy said that she should wear a beautiful bracelet for today's ceremony. After this conversation, Kieran went to his sister and Esmeralda, who was keeping Rain company. Both were happy to see the Duke's son and were very pleased with his presence. The girls noticed a mysterious expression on Kieran's face. Nuna Reina noticed that her brother looked a little pale. She asked if he was all right. Her brother assured her that he was perfectly fine. He thanked her for her concern and was very pleased that she had noticed him. Esmeralda noticed the changes in Kieran. She said that the boy had grown up very quickly. The time since their last meeting had flown by. The girl was clearly interested in the young man. Nuna Reina thought that soon her little brother would turn into the romantic hero described in the book. She was interrupted by the voice of the chief master of ceremonies, who addressed everyone present. The man thanked everyone who had come to the ceremony from the bottom of his heart. He was glad that so many people had decided to share the joy of this day with him. This day was to be extraordinary, filled with beauty and the joy of life. Today, everyone would see the flower of love bloom, and everyone would bless the bright feelings that were about to blossom. The man firmly believed that they were destined to become even stronger and more enduring. Nuna noticed how closely Lemire was watching her and her brother. In addition, the girl noticed her bracelet on the hands of her fierce opponent. In fact, Lady Lemire's appearance was somewhat surprising. It was even frightening. Lady Lemire's husband also could not understand the strange change that had come over his wife in the last few hours. He tried in every way to guess the reason, because he did not recognize his bride. The master of ceremonies asked everyone to support the feelings that were emerging here and now. Finally, the moment came when the groom and bride were to light the candle together. The fire flared up in front of Lemire and her fiancé. Lemire's hand, with the bracelet on it, was burning. The girl called everyone for help. When Reina extinguished the fire on Lemire's dress, she began to yell at her and accuse her of staging the whole thing. It was all her evil plan. Lemire asked what Reina had done to the bracelet, that it had caught fire just from being near the fire. Esmeralda asked if the bracelet belonged to Lady Reina, and why, in that case, was it on someone else's hand? Everyone around noticed that Esmeralda was right. People whispered among themselves, but most were inclined to believe that the young daughter of the dukes had simply borrowed or lent the jewelry to someone. The hall buzzed with speculation. Reina herself asked her opponent why the jewelry was on her wrist. Lemire had simply promised to look after the bracelet, hiding it in a very safe place. She had said that the jewelry was too luxurious for a commoner. Lemire turned to Kirian for protection from the attacks. She asked him to explain to everyone what had happened. After all, he was the one who had asked her to wear the jewelry. The young man replied that he had no idea what she was talking about. The girl looked at Kirian in confusion. She asked him what he was talking about. Just a few hours ago, he had sworn his love for her and refused to let her marry his fiancé. Esmeralda asked him to be quiet. The girl said that everyone had seen Lamia take the bracelet from Reina. On top of that, she had dared to attack Nuna, who had come to congratulate her opponent on such an important day in every girl's life. Everyone around thought that Lamia should be ashamed of stealing someone else's jewelry and attacking the bracelet's real owner. The aristocrat did not know how to respond to the condemnation that was pouring in from all sides. Nuna watched Lemire walk away. She couldn't understand what was wrong with these aristocrats. Power and a sense of self-importance were their only priorities. Lemire would now be ashamed to show her face in public. People asked why the Countess had taught her daughter that way. After all, today's actions showed a rather limited worldview. Those present spoke of the low moral values that most people lived by nowadays. Nuna understood that she felt no hatred or negative emotions toward her opponent. She just wanted this feud to end as soon as possible, and yet she believed that at some point she had gone too far. Kirian asked the girl to stop blaming herself. She was not to blame for this situation. After everything she had endured from Lemire, this was a normal outcome. His sister had been too kind to her enemy. He suggested they go for a walk in the garden near the palace. The girl was delighted with his suggestion. Reina noticed that Kirian's attitude toward her had changed recently. He had become more attentive and polite to her, but he no longer expressed his feelings as openly as he had when they were children. Reina couldn't shake the feeling that they had grown apart and were no longer as close as they had been since childhood. Reina asked how Lemire had ended up in her bracelet. The boy replied that it had been difficult to pull off, but he had succeeded. He said he was very tired of having to lie. According to him, Kirian didn't know how to do it at all, although his sister had her doubts about that. And so he deserved praise. After all, he had to do something he didn't like doing. The girl ruffled his hair and jokingly pitied him. In her heart, her brother was still a child. Reina suggested returning to the hall because everyone would be leaving soon. And now they had a moment to eat something delicious. Reina was writing a letter. She thought that everything was fine with her, and soon she would have the opportunity to talk to the Duke. They would discuss the wedding. Finally, she finished writing the letter and thought again that everyone around her was getting married. There was very little time left before the main plot began. She and her brother were gradually growing apart, and Reina had made no progress with her plans for the future. Independence seemed so far away. The girl decided to take a break and get some fresh air. She got dressed and left the hall. Lost in her worries and anxieties, Reina did not notice that Kirian was following her. The boy had long noticed how distant his sister had become. He went into the room and took the letter that Reina had just finished writing. The lovers' letters always spoke of their willingness to endure any trials and overcome all obstacles on the path to happiness. He expected to see vows and sacrificial promises to his other half in the letter, but these letters lacked the tenderness and warmth of loving hearts. Kieran remembered how his sister had suffered from insomnia. He looked at his sister walking across the hall and thought that marriage was not a problem for him. The young man hoped to resolve this issue immediately. The Duke felt no guilt about his plans for his sister. The girl returned to the room when she noticed that someone was there. She asked fearfully who was there. Kieran reassured her and told her not to worry. He asked his sister to put him to sleep, as she often did when they were children. The girl did not immediately understand her brother's request. Kieran added that they would sleep better together. After all, they would rock each other to sleep. The girl protested, saying that he was already a grown man and it was not proper to do such things. The boy insisted. He said he had had a very scary dream. He couldn't believe that his beloved sister would push him away and leave him at the mercy of his only brother's nightmares. Kieran was upset. Nuna replied that he was already an adult and his tricks wouldn't work. He asked why she was pushing him away. The girl replied that she wouldn't chase anyone away, but that it was strange to do such things at their age. The boy said she was right. After all, they were family, and family didn't abandon each other. His sister thought she'd lost to him again when he lay next to her in bed. But she was right that her little brother wasn't really a grown-up. Kieran asked if his sister was worried about the fact that she was still unmarried, and that was why she was having trouble sleeping. The girl agreed. Everyone around her was already married, and she had been alone all this time. She was worried. Raina herself was surprised that the boy asked her about this. He usually reacted like that to any questions about his sister's marriage. And then Kieran asked if he could help her with this. The young man continued to say that he could talk to his father. Nuna thought that if Kieran could persuade his father, that would be very good. But she was surprised that the young man had brought up the subject at that particular moment. Instead, the boy asked his sister for something. As soon as she came of age, she would have to leave the duchy. The girl looked at her brother in confusion. She was already planning to leave the palace. Before, death awaited her, and now she would become an exile. She agreed to his proposal. The girl said that if she got married, she would do as he asked. Her brother was delighted that everything had worked out. When they had settled down, her brother asked her if they would still be a family after all this. The girl began to cry. She didn't understand why she was crying. Everything was going according to plan. She wouldn't even have to run away. The Duke summoned Nuna and told her that it was time for her to think about marriage. After all, at 16, it was the right age. The man remembered how little his daughter had been not so long ago. And now she was already thinking about her wedding. He gave his consent to her marriage. The girl thanked her father. Finally, her father said that it didn't matter whether she got married or not. There would always be a place for her in the Duke's lands. Nuna looked delighted. Finally, she received the permission to marry that she had dreamed of for so long. The first to congratulate the girl was her friend Esmeralda. She expressed a lot of joy and warmth on this occasion. After all, Nuna was like a sister to her. Viscountess Mazine said that she had long noticed what a beautiful couple Nuna and Raina were. Esmeralda also needed to find a prince and a groom. The girl replied that she was confident of Esmeralda's happiness. Nuna thought to herself that Esmeralda was destined to be the heroine of a novel. Therefore, everything would surely work out for her, and she could devote herself entirely to her own life. Suddenly, she remembered that Kieran had not been home for several days. Raina was upset that her brother might miss the wedding ceremony. Esmeralda's mother said that she was also very upset that Raina's only brother would miss the ceremony. The girl said that it was no big deal. She remembered his sad words, in which he said that they would no longer be a family. Nuna thought that Kieran no longer considered her his sister. Her heavy thoughts were distracted by preparations for the wedding. On the day of the ceremony, Prince Hiz said that he was grateful to the girl for becoming his bride. The man promised to do his best to make Nuna comfortable. The girl replied that she would also try her best for her fiancé. She was grateful to the prince for helping her become independent through marriage. Now all she had to do was play the role of a bride, and she had succeeded. Everything was going smoothly. The prince asked what had happened to Nuna. She looked as if she was about to cry. The bride replied that she was just overexcited. She was very happy that they were finally husband and wife. Only after the ceremony was over did Raina realize that she did not remember how the ceremony had gone, or what wedding dress she had worn. She could not remember anything at all. All her thoughts were far away from that place. The Duke wished Prince Hisu the best possible stay in his domain. The prince was glad that everything had worked out for him, and now he had certain political dividends from his successful marriage to the daughter of the Duke of Istra. Kirin approached the prince. He greeted the noble guest. His asked what had prompted such a visit, since the Duke's son had entered his chambers without permission. The young man ignored the prince. He looked around the room. Kirin said that the prince was lucky that Reina had agreed to become his wife. But the Duke's son understood that this marriage was dictated by political issues, and Kirin found it hard to believe in love at first sight. The boys recalled their meeting 9 years ago at a celebration dedicated to statehood. Since then, the prince and his bride had not seen each other once. In such a case, there could be no question of love. Feelings in such a case were completely absurd, unless the prince was attracted to the status of the Duke's daughter, although he did not consider his sister to be someone who could be easily deceived. The prince told Lady Reina about his agreement, but he emphasized that when he saw his fiancée, all thoughts of the agreement vanished from his mind. He had fallen sincerely in love with the Duke's daughter, and now could not imagine life without her. Or perhaps he had felt this way from the very beginning. Besides, she was now his fiancée, and even if Kirin was showing open hostility, he would not give up on Reina because she had not given up on him. There was nothing more to discuss, but Kirin asked what they were going to do about it now. After all, the same applied to him. The conflict promised to escalate with every passing minute if the opponents did not show wisdom and restraint. The question remained open. Nuna was in her room, wondering why Kirin hadn't come to his only sister's wedding. Was he really that upset that she had decided to marry another man? And it was silly to be sad because of her brother. The girl thought long and hard about whether she was doing the right thing. In the end, she realized that she was very hurt by her brother's failure to attend her wedding ceremony. Just then, Kirin walked in. He was glad that his sister was still awake. Her brother said he had come to apologize to his sister. He had accidentally missed the ceremony. Reina was worried that he might have heard everything she'd been thinking out loud. Instead, she said that everything had gone well. But Kirin said that not everything was fine, because he could see that his sister was worried about something. The girl asked him to leave her alone because she was very tired. She was ready to fall asleep right there and then. The boy said that he had brought her a gift. He said he had chosen something shiny and beautiful for her, just the way she liked. The girl said she was willing to wait for it, because a gift from her brother was very precious to her, and she couldn't refuse him. Kirin led his sister to the lake. The girl liked it very much. The shiny things her brother had told her about turned out to be stars reflected on the surface of the pond. The boy asked his sister Rainy if she liked it. Her brother said that his sister liked other shiny things a little better, but he thought it was a good idea for a gift. Nuna said she liked it very much. No one had ever done anything like this for her before. Her brother's idea was wonderful. The girl admitted that she really liked Kirin and his ideas. It was a pity that the prince was not like her younger brother. Romance and love were not part of Hisa's plans. The main thing in their marriage was an agreement. Kirin said that he did not regret missing the wedding at all. The only thing that bothered him was that he missed dancing with his bride. The boy asked if he could ask his sister to dance right now. Sometimes she wondered if her brother was the hero in the book. He was very different from the character described. Noonie sometimes thought she had made a mistake in drawing parallels. She found it hard to believe that he would turn into the cruel man she had read about in the novel. The boy asked if he had bothered her a lot when they were children. Reina replied that she had simply loved him. The girl added that he had been very sweet as a child, although he often took offense at this. At that time, she was simply afraid of angering him. He asked if she found him pleasant and kind now. The girl agreed. Reina wondered when the moment would come when he would become a cruel sociopath. Would he soon drive his parents from their ancestral lands and stage a bloody massacre? Right now, he was simply very handsome. The boy asked if he was mature enough to be called simply unbeatable. The girl said that he still had a long way to go. Perhaps the plot of the novel had changed after she moved here. The boy said that everything in this world changes over time. He and his sister were no longer what they used to be. Nuna thought that she had changed Kirin for the better, but her brother interrupted her thoughts. He reminded her of their agreement, which stated that she must leave his father's land after she marries Prince Hisa. The boy asked her not to forget and to keep her promise. Nuna was leaving for the academy. Her personal maid, Elisa, was carrying her mistress's suitcases and said that another carriage was needed for all the Duchess's daughters' belongings. The girl asked the maid not to forget to take the furniture as well. The Duke and his wife watched their daughter torment the servants. The man assured her that the servant's salary should be increased. After all, only a very loyal person or a true friend could endure such hell. The parents noticed that the girl was nervous. They believed that the reason for this was that their daughter was worried about entering the academy. Her mother added that a girl her age should be playing and enjoying life. Rainey was a little tired of her parents' lectures on how she should behave. Some aspects of the Duke's parenting really bothered her. She remembered a song by a famous rapper in her world who sang about his wealth.